ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकीम्। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पंकजनाभाय नमः पंकजमालिने नमः पंकजनेत्राय नमस्ते पंकजांग्रे नमस्ते पंकजांग्रे नमस्ते पंकजांग्रे। हरे कृष्णा। रिपीट आफ्टर मी। यद यद आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। यद यद आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते।
यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठः
यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना प्रमाणं स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। प्रभु जी यद् यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते। हरे कृष्णा। यद् यद् whatever ācarati he does श्रेष्ठ a respectable leader tat that tat and that alone eva certainly itara common jana person sa he yat whichever pramanam example kurute does perform loka all the world tat that anuvartate follows in the footsteps. Translation purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Repeat after me. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport, can anybody read?
A leader cannot take the public stop. Thus, such that
Fast, little,
that a teacher should be
loud.
for repeated teaching. One who teaches in that way is called acharya or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of śreṣṭhas, scripture to be the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu, Samhita, and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on principles of such standards, śreṣṭhas. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king was the executive head of the state. The father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual purpose.
Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalitam Shri Vishakhamvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarurvyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, Karma Yoga, we are in discussion of the fourth, the fourth padav. And in the first section was only 2 questions by Arjuna. Then Krishna gave his opinion on what one has to do. That is in a Karma Yoga, what Arjuna has to do, what is suitable for him is Karma Yoga, work with detachment. And then if we came to the third section, which said, if you cannot work with detachment, at least work in the spirit of sacrifice. And that is how Karma Kanda was introduced, and Karma Kanda, how it could be converted to Karma Yoga, that was specified. And anyway, if we cannot go through the Vikarma model, that is, just living the life for waste without, doing any sacrifice. Don't waste your life. He gave that a principle also. And then he gave about, he spoke about person who is in Karma Yoga. For him, no prescribed duties are mentioned, right? And even if he doesn't do his duties, it doesn't matter. But still, he performs, So we'll just have a recap of the previous class, and then we will come to today's thing. Yes, Hare Krishna. So what was the special points which we discussed last week? So we discussed 2 shlokas, right?
That's my
Yeah.
Don't expect the outcome.
Yes.
So that you can reach the param.
Yes, you can reach. Yeah. Paramapnoti Purushaha. So you can reach the the supreme. You can see the supreme. So continuously, continuously. That is, it was you have to perform work in detachment continuously. And we spoke about this, right? Satatam. Tasmat asakta satatam. So be detached, satatam, always. Whether you are doing fruitful activity or whether you are doing relinquished activity, whether you are able to relinquish the fruits or whether you are able to, not relinquish the fruits. Still, you have to work in the spirit of detachment. That was the important key principle which he laid down, that, whether you are attached to fruits or whether you are detached to fruits, you have to work in the principle of detachment, because detachment will lead to disentanglement. And he spoke to this to Arjuna, right? So that, Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and for Kshatriya, the doing Yuddha was his adhikar. Karmanyeva adhikar, we understood. So it was his adhikar. So it is at his level that he has to do this work. And that is how we discussed how Krishna discussed various permutations and combinations and finally gave, that, you have to work. And then what else? That is in the next loka, yeah. But here itself, 1 or 2 points I thought we'll just discuss. We had 1 or 2 points more also. We'll have the clarity and confidence. Yes, because we spoke about the responses. We took the example of a shop salesman, sari vendor, We took the example of that person who sells saris, and we have seen a bus, sometimes Mataji is taking saris, hundreds of saris, 200s of saris, and still they don't select even one also. So what would be the responses in that situation? So that is where we discuss that, hasty response is not necessarily the best response. Hasty response is not necessarily the best response. So it would depend on the calmness and clarity. It depends on the person's calmness and clarity. And calmness is possible when we are detached. So this was the whole principle. So calmness is possible when we are detached. Because we are attached, then we'll always be agitated. So in that situation, you will definitely reach the paramāṇaṁ. Then, you will grow in your spiritual consciousness and you'll attain that perfection. Paramāṇaṁ purushaha. So, and then he gives an example, as Mataji was saying. He gives an example of Janak Maharaj. Janakādayaha. Karmanaiva hi sansiddhim Janakādaya. That, he gives Janak Maharaj, though he was not a mendicant. Janak Maharaj was not a mendicant. He was not a relinquished person. He was not a mendicant. He was a grahastha. And within grahastha, how he led the life, balanced life, and attained perfection. So we took the story from the Puranas that, during the time of fire also, he did not lose his calm. He just advised his men to take care of the fire, and he again sat down for the Krishna Katha. So when he used to come late to the Krishna Katha because he used to complete all his duties and come to the Katha. Okay, when I say Krishna Katha, it's okay. Hari Katha. Okay, sometimes we say Ramayana ke time mein Krishna Katha to Krishna the, but Hari Katha, chalo theek hai. Hari Katha के अंदर जब आते थे तो हरि कथा में बिजी आते थे, चाहे फिर वो भौतिक जगत में कुछ भी उतार चढ़ाव क्यों ना हो रहा हो, उसके अंदर जरूर लोग विचलित हो जाते थे, परंतु ये विचलित हुए बिना अपने धैर्य से डिसीजन लेते थे एवं वापस कार्य में लग जाते थे. So this is where exactly Janaka and Adaya, and we understood Janaka is also not only Janak Maharaj, but it also the title of the kings in particular generation, and that is where we discussed during Janak Maharaj also in Mithila. The earlier first Janak was named as he was the present Janak was Sirdhwaj Janak, who was father of Sita, but the original Janak was Udavasu Janak, and his son was Nandivardhak Janak, and 21st generation was Sirdhwaj Janak, which is Janak Maharaj. So he gives that example that, this means, it is not necessary that you have to relinquish everything in your life and just become, सब कुछ छोड़ के तुमको वानप्रस्थ लेके संन्यास लेके सिद्धि हासिल करना. Okay, that is also one of the way. But that is not the only way. Even by being a grahastha and being disattached to your duties, means, okay, you have to perform your duties unattached. In that situation also you can achieve perfection. So in a way, Bhagavad Gita never says you that you leave your life and become a sannyasi or anything. No, that's again a personal choice. If a person can be dedicated to Krishna, that's also one of the ashram. But the question is, once we have adopted grahastha ashram, we should not leave that as easily. Till the time permits, we have to continue and we can achieve perfection. This is where Krishna has put forward this. Otherwise, in general was, okay, after grahastha, you have to become vanaprastha. Vanaprastha के बाद में संन्यास. संन्यास लेके हम उसको पा सकते हैं. इसी डिस्कशन में कंटिन्यू करते हुए, टुडे कृष्णा इज सेइंग व्हाट? We'll understand. यद यद आचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत्तत् एवेतरो जनाः स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस तद अनुवर्तते. So essentially, like, yad yad ācarati śreṣṭhas means whenever, means whatever or whenever means whatever the people, great leaders. Basically, this lokas today is for the great leaders, leaders who can lead the society. So whatever they do, tattad evetaro jana. So general common man or general common people just follows that. They follow that. And sayat pramāṇaṁ kurute. And so whatever those leaders set, lokas tad anuvartate, the followers emulate that. Or, they just follow the standards, emulate. So essentially, Krishna is stating that we all can learn, and we do learn also, right? We all can learn and we do learn from the examples of our leaders. So everyone learns. Krishna has given an example that learn from the example of leaders, and we do also learn from the examples of our leaders. And if we are leaders, Krishna says one more point that, you should set examples for others. So we have to discuss this. Yad yad ācarati śreṣṭhas. So the caliber of the society, we live in a society. So the caliber of the society in large is decided by the caliber of the leaders. Like, when you discuss so and so society, then you suddenly say, oh, there was this person, who used to, lead his life and who gave so and so example. So a caliber of the society is well known or well decided by the caliber of the leaders. And if you look back, say 50 or 100 years back in our history, then we find inspiring leaders who usually stood for some principles. They stood for some principles and they were remembered for those principles which they set as standards. For example, we call an Iron Man of India. Immediately you recollect, right? Who was he? Vallabhbhai Patel, right? Iron Man of India. The moment you say, you recollect. And nowadays, what happens is, it's okay. There are things today also, but I just want to give one example. And I said Iron Man of India. So nowadays, most often we are in a glamorized world of the media, which are represented by the movie stars and the sportsmen. And what they offer to us is entertainment, right? What they offer to us is entertainment. And nothing more than that, right? Of course, they play for their personal benefits and all those, but when they come into media, they offer to us as an entertainment. But when they become models or role models of common people, then what will happen? Common people will also learn only the fashions what they have been presenting, right? Or, whatever kind of things they are presenting, or the hairstyles or the dance, those kinds of things only what they are presenting. Common people also tries to follow that, whatever. So neither the leaders today, okay, I don't say 100%, but the question is most of it, neither the leaders are very extraordinary in the sense of having a substantial character. There are. I don't say 100%, I'm not negating. There are. But mostly leaders who are not very extraordinary in the sense they are not having substantial character, nor the people from them who learn from them go very important. They also just become a common thing, repeating only hairstyles and dance and all those. So how people get caught in these trivial issues and they get entrapped. So we have to understand this principle very, very nicely. So in general, see what happens. In general, we are all social beings also. Okay, we are also social beings because we live in a society which is based on social laws and all those. So as a social being, what happened? We always need to get some kind of confirmation or some kind of vindication or some kind of reiteration or affirmation that whatever we are doing is correct or not. Otherwise we start doubting ourselves at times whether I'm doing this right, whether what I'm taking as a decision, whether this will be approved by others. This is what sometimes, most of it, sometimes, for that reason, we need some kind of confirmation, vindication, and all those things. So at extreme level, sometimes what happens is it just becomes an approval addiction. So when we go to extremes of this process, it just becomes an approval addiction. And at the basic level, it's a need for our belongingness. That okay, that we are on the right path. And we do something, we wonder whether, this will be liked by the society or it would be alienating from me, from the society. So whether anybody previously has done this in the society and what was their response, he was well appreciated in the social circle. So when he was well appreciated, when he put this thesis, when he put this thought well forward, it was appreciated. So I can certainly progress on that path. That is where exactly he takes as a confirmation and vindication to proceed on that particular path. So, this is, so we can say this person was famous for taking so-and-so calls. And we, just in which situation he had taken what call, we do follow, right? So this is where exactly the confirmation and vindication outcome, and it works. It doesn't work. It doesn't, I don't say it doesn't work. It works. So in this way, sometimes we move forward. So this way it's an essentially, so we channel or we turn our actions based on the actions of those leaders, which we are following, or the opinion masters, we can call it as. Now the question comes is, who are the leaders? Okay, they had some special characteristics, but who are the leaders in the society in general? Means like, how do you call a leader? So it's a big wide term, right? Yeah. Because right from childhood, if you take, for a child, his mother, father are the leaders. Because they guide him to some kind of morality, some kind of spirituality. And right, the mother, father are the first teachers, right? Because they help the child to start speaking also. The mother starts speaking and the child starts speaking. So, they set an example. So, be and all, teachers, the first teachers are parents. And when the child grows and starts going to school, teachers, right? Teachers start giving them the knowledge, and they, some teachers becomes their role model. Also in the process, they get some peers, right? Some person, he's always coming first rank. Nobody could break his rank, right? He's always coming as first rank, and peers. So teachers as well as peers, that affects them. And further, when we go beyond teachers, peers, nowadays we get influenced by the media. As I spoke, we get influenced by the media. In fact, the onslaught of pervasiveness of the media is so much that children often spend more time on the media, that is TV. And what happens? Because of that TV or say, whatever media, the virtual impressions of things which they basically get actually is lost. Which they could think about is actually lost. Because they only see, and that is what they think is almost, they develop that kind of habit. So the whole creative thinking which they have to do exceptionally sometimes, okay, they may get an idea. I'm not telling 100% loss, but then today's world where it is, all, if you open the TV, it is all glamorized world. Nothing else, you open all soap operas, they are all rubbish. Instead of giving you some lessons to the society, they give you all lessons to break the society. So, it becomes a fantasy world where fantasy model becomes the example. So now, no doubt, entertainment is one thing, but imagine the entertainment as reality, and especially children who cannot differentiate between them, who does not have the capacity to differentiate between these two, entertainment and reality, then it will become harmful. We will not be able to see śreṣṭhas. That is what I'm like, leaders of this śreṣṭhas category. śreṣṭhas also will understand. So as when we grow older, this media keeps more and more influencing, from youth to adulthood, and more influencing. And their choices, their fashions and everything, they say is good for them. No? So tatta evetaro janaḥ. This is what Krishna wants to say. They just try to follow. I'll come to good part of it. Don't say, the question is, when I want to put it exactly, because what it present scenario sometimes it is to, better, easily understandable. So George Bernard Shaw, probably you know him. So he once said, his quote is, fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to change it every few months. Yeah. Fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to change it every few months. And why do we have to change it? Why do we have to change it? Because all the film stars or whatever stars and whoever, they just change the clothes, and every 2 months they come with some kind of hairstyle, some new film, some kind of new hairstyle, and we just want to repeat that. We just want to repeat those kinds of clothes, those kinds of goggles, those kinds of hairstyles. So we just try to replicate them, and that is why George Bernard Shaw, when he said, it exactly fits in there. Now the question comes is śreṣṭhas. What is śreṣṭhas? What is śreṣṭhas?
Conduct and character.
Yeah, conduct and character. So something which is exemplary, respectable. Yes, one which is respected within the society. That's very, very important also. Okay, that which is respected in the society, and that too 100%, okay, not 100, okay, 98, 90, but a person with some moral values, with some strength, right? So it's crucial to understand that, this term śreṣṭha is used for great men or the best man, the best men, śreṣṭha. So in ordinary understanding, it's a, leader for someone who has accomplished these great things and who is just become a best man. He's come to that level and he's accomplished those characters. He's followed some principle. He stuck to those principles and lived his life in those principles, and he is known for that principles. He becomes an example. मैं ये बोल सकता हूँ, जिसके पास धन है, जिसके पास सौंदर्य है, जिसके पास ऐश्वर्य है, क्या ये सब भी एग्जाम्पल्स बन सकते हैं रोल मॉडल्स के? हाँ, बन सकते हैं. सोच लो.
It's a way how they want to.
Can you elaborate?
जैसे अगर बल में भी देखें, बहुत सारे कैरेक्टर हैं जो बहुत बलवान थे.
Okay.
जैसे तमाम
हाँ.
बहुत बलशाली थे, लेकिन ब्रह्मचारी थे लोग. एंड बहुत सारी ऐसी माताएं भी हैं जो बहुत ब्यूटीफुल, बट अगर पति वनवास जा रहा है तो 14 साल के लिए उन्होंने भी.
चलो ठीक है. Yes, exactly. Okay. So I said सौंदर्य, धन, ऐश्वर्य. Yeah.
If they want, they can. If they want. English में ठीक बोलते हैं ना प्रभु.
हाँ.
Knowledge gives power. The character gives respect.
That is where I was coming. So whether entire money will give you character? Not necessary. Whether means like saundarya, being beautiful, can it give you character? It could be the most disowned character, we can see. And also aishwarya, पैसा उसके पास यदि बहुत है, Can he give you a good character? Most of the time you see Nalkuber Manikrivi हम क्यों लेते हैं example कभी कभी है ना? They may fall down very easily. है ना? ज्ञान. You know,
अहंकार होता है
huh?
यहाँ यूनिट अहंकार
Yeah, that is where exactly. But these alone cannot define one's character. So that is where exactly. So not necessarily these persons could be person who has only like okay, all these are of course existing with Krishna. I don't want to go to that level, but the question is, if a person is really wealthy, can it be a role model? He can be, as Prabhu was trying to explain, like Bhishma Pitama, and he gave Sita and all those. Okay, there is there. But the question is, in general, not necessarily these would add to the character of that person. So this is where, how do we understand the śreṣṭha of the particular person? This is where exactly where we come Shastra Chakshu. We have to understand it through the point of Shastra Chakshu. Okay, from the point of view of the eyes of the scriptures. Right, because scriptures will give you principles, and if you are following those principles and standing on it, then you could present yourself as śreṣṭha. Right? So, from the Shastra point of view, otherwise what happened? शास्त्र के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से यदि हम नहीं देखें, किसी के पास बहुत ये सब कुछ है, धन ऐश्वर्य, सबसे नीच व्यक्ति भी हो सकता, हम इसको डिनाई नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि उसकी बहुत दुष्ट व्यक्ति भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि उसका आचरण ठीक नहीं होगा. यदि यद आचरति श्रेष्ठस्. आचरण इज बीइंग स्पोकन अबाउट. Acharan is one who displays, this characteristics, who demonstrates, who presents himself to the society in general. He follows and he makes others also follow that. Acharan is that what? First you have to, Acharya kisko bolte hai? First Acharya himself learns, he is a student, he learns himself. And he lives by that example and he teaches that example to his student. That is why he is known as Acharya. And we have discussed, Acharya's characteristics, like he cannot be a showcase Acharya, just for the namesake, he's relinquished his namesake for show off. We say that जब हमने ये जो बात आई थी ना कि relinquishment of duties, so the relinquishment should be from real within. Sannyas जो है within sannyas होना चाहिए, not बाहरी दिखावे. Sannyas is not going to help you. We discussed a lot, right? Just external garb will not help of a renunciate. If you just wear a garb of an external renunciate, it's not going to help you out. इसीलिए शास्त्र चक्षु बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाते हैं इस आचरण को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए. So what this श्रेष्ठ person does can be understood from two angles, two tantras we can call it as. Two tantras, that is Rajatantra and Prajatantra. Rajatantra क्या है? Monarchy. And प्रजातंत्र है डेमोक्रेसी. राइट? सो ये दो तरीकों से, क्योंकि दो ही तरीके है, और क्या है, द क्वेश्चन इज ना, या तो मोनार्कियल फॉर्म हो जाए या तो फिर प्रजातंत्र हो जाए. या तो मोनार्कियल जो किंग ने डिसाइड किया वही है, या फिर जो भी रूलर्स ने डिसाइड किया वही है, चाहे इवन वो मिलिट्री फॉर्म पे हो तो मोनार्कियल ही है ना. ठीक है. और प्रजातंत्र डेमोक्रेसी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. इन डेमोक्रेसी वी नो हाउ लीडर्स आर चोजन थ्रू द vote system, right? In monarchical form, earlier, how it used to happen? Not today. Huh? By birth and lineage. Is it?
Point to come from the good place to अच्छा और the best व्यक्ति हो.
हाँ.
Not necessarily कि वो
lineage. हाँ?
Not necessarily कि वो elder हो, लेकिन best.
हाँ, या नो डाउट. मैंने अभी तो एज में तो आया नहीं, वो तो कोई भी छोटा व्यक्ति, छोटा ध्रुव महाराज 5 साल के, he is also an example for us, so we will not come to that age. But the question is, the kings used to be chosen by what? By lineage? Is it? That lineage was started only 5,000 years back, or, okay. It was there before also, but the question was, the choosing was based on the caliber. Based on the caliber. If a person is not capable of ruling, be it from the lineage, he was supposed to be avoided. Dhritarashtra, what happened? He was blind. A blind man cannot rule the kingdom, and that is how he was. We were reading Ramayana, right? How was Rama chosen? just because he's son of Dashrath? There is an entire discussion which goes on. है ना? पूरा discussion है, right? Ki Rama possesses all this quality, he's done so and so. It's like, there's a whole lot of discussion which goes on. And who does that discussion? The Brahmanas, right? The Brahmana, the Pradhan Senapatis and all those who are there, courtiers. So they have the knowledge of the Shastras, and based on the Shastra, they recommend by the evidence that, he is the best suitable. Okay, he can be lineage also. He is the best suitable person to become the king. But over a period, of course, it became only by birth, and that is where all things started. Only, karma siddhant important नहीं रह के जन्म सिद्धांत important हो गया, और जिसके वजह से सब कुछ जो वर्णाश्रम सिस्टम है वो भी थोड़ा डगमगा गया आगे चल के. So, but in today's world, if you take Kali Yuga, what is happening? Shastra says one word: Kalau Shudra Sambhava. Kalau Shudra Sambhava means Kali Yuga is mostly the verdict of Shudras. So mostly Kali Yuga is represented by Shudras, And Shudras, I don't say 100%. Again, say don't take 100%. Mostly Shudras dwell upon Indriya Rama model. They do not have that kind of knowledge which a Brahmana has. Okay. I'm not telling 100%. It's an exception. There are exceptions in every this thing. Even Sutta Goswami, it's not necessary. But the question is, in general, Brahminical qualities. So they don't have Brahminical qualities, Shudras, because Paricharyatmakam Krishnam. Their work is to only do Paricharya. And that is where they dwell upon the Indriya Rama model. Indriya Rama model is for the sense gratification. That is, we earn for money, and king will give us this thing. Vaishyas will give us this thing, so we help them out, and they will give our livelihood, and we can stay. And as so they become the leaders. When such Shudras, they become the leaders, what they do? They first deceive the people who have appointed them only, who have voted to them only. Right? Why? Because Indriya Rama model. They want to enjoy their own sense gratification. What promises they have made, they don't want to fulfill that. They first disown that and they enjoy for the self. Okay, thoda bahut kar dete hain, not necessarily all 100%, hai na? And in this way, what happened as a result? After 5 years or 6 years or 4 years, whatever the case may be, one more Shudra is appointed by the same process. One more Shudra as a leader is appointed by the same process. That is why Srila Prabhupada, calls this system of democracy as a demon crazy model. Because you are creating demons without God consciousness. It is the responsibility of the head of the king or the respective state head to make people involved in the God consciousness. They are in the Indriya Rama model, and they just want to live. So animal life, and not even Karmakanda level. At least in Karmakanda, we said, at least invoke auspiciousness by, invoking the Supreme, and do some sacrifice so that, within sacrifice already the Supreme is included. They don't even want to do that. They just want to do the Indriya Rama model, not even Karmakanda. At least Karmakanda is something better than the animal life model. We see the hierarchy. They don't want to do that also. And what kind of acharan they will give? So acharan is what? Again, the principle of education. It's a principle. Acharan is, how you display the principle. So education is not being discussed here. If you just see Yadiyad ācarati, śreṣṭhas, the education is not being discussed here. That has not been given importance here. Rather, the acharan is given importance here. So not necessarily a person should be highly educated to demonstrate the acharan. He can be an ordinary person in the society also, but following the principles, he could display a good example. So in that way, even Shudras also, not necessary. But I said in general, what happens is mostly public, because क्या होता है कि 100 में से 1-2 रहते हैं तो फिर in general की बात करनी होती है. So that's where Srila Prabhupada writes in the quote that, a leader, he himself smokes and asks public, smoking is injurious to health. Will it help? But first you have to follow, Baba. You have to demonstrate that I am not smoking, or I was smoking, I left smoking. It's injurious to health. Right? So, you do not want to do and you want to put it for us. How will you present that acharan and why the people will follow? Baba is saying something, so that is where exactly people will also continue to be Indriya Rama model. When it comes to spirituality, because we have become, we are following the spirituality path. We are also becoming spiritualist. Because why? Because we want to go into that path. And we have also found some inspiring spiritual leaders or spiritual guides who helped us in this subject matter. तभी हम लोग आगे बढ़ रहे हैं ना? Be it some sage or some person whose theories we are following, like, for example, we are following Srila Prabhupada. So, so we have got some spiritual guides and spiritual teachers who are expert in that particular subject matter. We are following them. Now, when we start practicing spirituality, it becomes our responsibility that we are following that particular path. Say, for example, when we are following ISKCON, we are following the path laid down by Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explaining through the purport. We are following some standards based on that. Okay, so it becomes our responsibility that we follow on that path and set examples for others. Right? It becomes our responsibility. Then only people will get inspired towards spirituality. Okay, Prabhupada has done and gone, but his devotees and all those, if they continue to inspire the coming generation, then only these things will move forward. See, what happens? Often people get alienated from God. So you see in the society, people ke paas Bhagwan ke paas time nahi hai. Often people get alienated by God, not because they hate God. Okay. Sometimes, okay, they don't believe. That's a different issue. It's not because of the hatred of God, but it is due to the disenchantment with those who are supposed to be devoted to God. Right? हो जाता क्या है कि ऐसे ऐसे वाक्य सामने आते हैं जिसकी वजह से एटलीस्ट जो गॉड के ऊपर भरोसा करने वाले लोग हैं वही धोखा देने शुरू कर देते हैं, है ना, समटाइम्स. So that's why, you find this proverb being used in Christian, oh God, save me from evangelist, right? This is a saying, Why? Because people sometimes in their zeal to appear become so fanatic to others that people get alienated. And it happens, like many of the times it happens with us also. People say, ISKCON के लोग बड़े typical होते हैं. होते हैं. ये तो किसी के यहाँ जाते नहीं, किसी के यहाँ खाते नहीं, किसी से मिलते नहीं, सारा दिन हरे कृष्णा करते रहते हैं, है ना? So they start alienating. अरे ISKCON वाले से दूर ही रहो भाई, ये लोग तो कुछ भी बोलते हैं, है कि नहीं? होता है कि नहीं? Practically we have seen many of the times people complaining, oh they have taken away my children, ये वो, ऐसा बहुत सारे आपको मिलेंगे. So it is important for us as devotees that, we make people stay connected to spirituality. And how that is possible? By stepping down one step. We discussed this, like, in the last lokas, like, when as karma yoga person, he doesn't have any duties prescribed for him. Not necessarily he has to do, but still he does by stepping down, right? And Maharaj had come here. He doesn't have to come. Okay, but then, he doesn't, but for the preaching mission, he steps down and comes and explains to a junior or, Madhyam Adhikari or, Kanishta Adhikari. He comes down and for that purpose. So, like, so it's a kind of, step down, but not a compromise. See, stepping down, okay, I may have to leave my external garb of a kurta, a dhoti, and I may have to come in a pant, okay, when I come to this part of the world. He is not compromised, he is stepped down, but he is not compromised on the principle. The moment he comes back to home, he can wear that, right? For example, there is a birthday program we are called for, and everybody has to perform. What will we do? There's a condition given. What do we do? Huh? Dress up and go, right? And perform also, right? But doing that, we should not forget the original thing. That is, we should not compromise there. Okay, you dance and make them dance also and chant Hare Krishna. किसी को बर्थडे विश करना है ना, ओके, बर्थडे का कंडीशन है डांस करके दिखाओ, करके दिखाया, बोले चलो और जब नाचो हरे कृष्णा कर सकते हैं, करते हैं ना. मैंने किया है इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ. आई नो यू विल रिमेंबर ऑल दैट, बट द क्वेश्चन इज वी डिडंट वांटेड टू डिसएंटैंगल विद एनीबॉडी, राइट? किसी को हम छोड़ना नहीं चाहते. वन हु इज ऑन द पाथ ऑफ स्पिरिचुअलिटी, बिकॉज दे वुड गेट एलिनिएटेड. भाई इन लोगों को बुलाए तो आते नहीं, ओके, बट कॉम्प्रोमाइज है हमारा, हम कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करते. प्याज लहसुन हम नहीं खा सकते तो नहीं खा सकते. देयर वी कैन लीव, वी कैन हैव ओनली फ्रूट्स, वी कैन हैव ओनली, हमको जो लगता है ठीक है इसमें प्याज लहसुन नहीं है, वी कैन हैव दैट, बट वी कैन नॉट गेट हम ये नहीं बोल सकते हम उनमें मिलना नहीं चाहते. आप मिलो भी, आपको स्टेप डाउन करना पड़ता है, बट रिमेंबर फॉर व्हाट पर्पस. द पर्पस इज ओके, इफ यू कैन मेक देम चैंट हरे कृष्णा देन योर पर्पस इज डन, right? So we have to be like yoga karmashu kaushalam, we have already read. So how yoga can be used with your kaushal, with your expertise. So this way we feel inspired, and people in general will also feel inspired by the spiritual life. And when we see for example, when we see good examples, we get inspired. Similarly, we get de-inspired, demotivated, disillusioned, and disenchanted when we see our senior devotees or persons whom we call as leaders, who are supposed to give good examples, who are supposed to set examples, indulge in uninspiring, anti-inspiring, and illegal things or activities, right? Because they do not fall within the definition of śreṣṭhas. So remember, same thing applies to us also when others are going to see us. So last time you were asking, right, Prabhu? So we have to remember the same thing, that the same thing is going to happen tomorrow to us. If somebody is getting inspired, listening to somebody, he has to apply all those things in his life also. मैं आपके सामने बोलूं मैं प्याज लहसुन नहीं खाता हूं और बाहर जाके अरे भाई नहीं मेरे को तो चाहिए. वो कथा भी हमने सुनी थी ना, एक पंडित बेचारा कथा करता है भी प्याज खाना नहीं चाहिए, लहसुन खाना नहीं चाहिए, तमोगुणी होता है, ये सब होता है, सब अच्छी बात है. और घर पे आके बोलता है, आज बीवी सुनती है भाई मैं इतने दिन इनको पाप खिला रही थी, बिना प्याज लहसुन का खाना बनाती, बोलती इसमें आज टेस्ट नहीं है. तो बोलते हैं आपने तो बोला प्याज लहसुन खाना नहीं चाहिए, अरे वो तो बोलने के लिए बोला. तो दिस काइंड ऑफ relinquishment doesn't help. Such kind of relinquishment doesn't help. You have to demonstrate by acharan. Demonstrate it by acharan. Now, setting up an example is, of course, it's not a one-level thing. It's a multi-level thing. It's not a one-level thing. It's multi-level thing. At one level, it means just, some basic human sensitivity and culture. Just to show some basic human sensitivity to others and, and some culture. So, Srila Prabhupada said devotees should be perfect gentlemen. And ladies also, so should be perfect gentlemen and ladies, he said. So when he said perfect, of course we have samachara, we have already read in the previous, perfectly we have to do. Samachara means you have to do samyak rupena acharana, which has to be perfectly. So what is that perfectly? That means that people should be able to appreciate even according to the mundane standards of behavior and conduct of these devotees. That's why he said, behave like gentlemen and gentle ladies. At another level, it could be the spiritual standards of devotion that a devotee is expected to follow. Right? At another level, it could be spiritual. Basic level, okay, human sensitivity, culture, then basic standards which a devotee has to follow in devotion life, right? For other devotees so that follow that also, like it should be an example, otherwise no use. In this way, we can ourselves set example to others or help others to select the right role model. There are far greater devotees and spiritual teachers who are better guide than us, but within our circle, we may be the only person, or we may be only few persons who are following spirituality. So, whether we like it or not, people are going to acquire those spiritual impressions. Whether I like it or not, people are going to acquire those spiritual impressions from us, and based on their dealings, we deal with them, they would again further grow. What will happen? Okay, if you are inspiring at least till this level also, eventually what will happen? Someday you will find some good spiritual master, or good spiritual teacher, or some other senior devotee, through which you will get more connected with them, and he will take you forward. And ultimately you will also get inspired. So this is a baby step. The house program, it's a baby step, so that you all get inspired by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, by the acharan which Krishna is expecting you to follow, and you become leaders in your own perfect field. So now ordinary people imitate such great men who are doing this. So during the course in discourse in New York, 1966, Prabhupada said, it is extremely important. That is why leaders must be highly ideal individuals. Highly ideal individuals. Then the country or society automatically becomes well off, because the leader of the society is perfect. In ancient times, that is why this monarchical form of government, the king was given the advanced education on how to rule the kingdom. This archery and all those, whatever, युद्ध के अलावा उनको राजनीति, रणनीति और कूटनीति, इन सब का भी अभ्यास दिया जाता था, और किस प्रकार लोगों को अब प्रजा के बीच में निर्णय देना है, प्रजा के बीच में आचरण करना है, इसका भी आपको उनको ये दिया जाता था. Yudhishthir Maharaj, for example, he was an ideal king. Oh, forget that. Ram Rajya, we still speak about today. Treta Yug se abhi tak bhi, we still speak of Ram Rajya, Lord Rama, as an ideal king. Right? Ideal king. So try to understand how much a king is responsible for the happiness of his subjects. Today we don't have kings model, okay, excepting few countries. We don't have, we have mostly the democracy model. So the person who is running that as a head, he should be at least ideal. Okay. So that people can follow him. Okay. So this is exactly, one should understand how much a king is responsible for the happiness of his subjects. He should be an ideal king and people should follow him. And that is where, and people should follow him, and he should see to it that people become devoted, spiritual, or Krishna conscious in our terms. If a leader is sinful and engages in impure activities, then you all can expect from the public is also the same. They cannot be pure. That is not possible also. You cannot have a, just pure public. That is why it is very important on this topic that, whatever great men do, ordinary people follow their footsteps. This is why good leaders are needed in the society. And if leaders are good, then you will not need to give a separate education to each person. Just with his acharan, his demonstration, many of them will just learn, because everybody, not necessarily they have to be educated. Just by seeing and just by looking also, person can do better acharan. He can change. We have many illiterates जिन्होंने पढ़ाई नहीं की है, but they do well आचरण in India also, right? कई पुराने लोगों ने जिन्होंने पढ़ाई नहीं की है, but परंतु उनका आचरण देखो एकदम सभ्य होता है. So Srila Prabhupada, that's why writes in the purport that authentic scriptures like Manu Samhita are the ideal scriptures for human society to follow. He's quoted Manu Samhita. And therefore, the teachings of the leader should be based on the principles of such ideal scriptures. It's unfortunate we are not following Manu Samhita. We have created a Samhita which is we call our own constitution, right? Our own constitution. had that constitution, of course, that has initial constitution when it was made, it had included, that one has to be spiritual based on the contents. They had chosen the photograph from the this thing. But ultimately what happened? They have chosen a book which not necessarily follows as per Manu Samhita. So that is the ideal book Prabhupada is writing for human mankind. Srimad Bhagavatam also states Manu Samhita is a law book for human society, directing all its activities towards the transcendental service of the Lord. That 3.9 means karmano yagnarthat karmano anyantra Krishna just not said it. Person has to adopt that. He has to follow those karmas, which has to be anyatra. Otherwise, karma bandhana. Therefore, it is duty, of the every king that his responsibility in administration is not merely to collect taxes from the citizen, but personally see that citizens under his rule are trained in devotional service or Vishnu worship. So that is where Yagnarthat Karmano Anyatra I was speaking. Every person should be trained to Vishnu worship. Okay? Or somebody mentioned, or engage them in the service of Rishikesha. People want to engage their senses in their own satisfaction. He should see to it that, they engage it into the satisfaction of the Lord, just by dovetailing the activities. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the purpose of this entire administrative system, like King Janaka displayed it. Krishna already, that's the reason he spoke about it. That he did not get up and say, I will extinguish the fire. He just displayed his administration team. He just instructed his administration team and they displayed the work. So the whole purpose of this administration should be to follow the scriptures, dovetail towards spirituality.
Idealistic.
Huh?
Sounds too idealistic.
Yeah, I know.
One would think, see, I understand that.
Otherwise, one will be a showboat administrator, Prabhu. That's what.
See, this example is one.
Samhita.
Yeah, so see, it's fit for purpose. I think there's a point in time you talk about different yogas.
Okay, no, this is for this Samhita is less like Veda. As Veda are applicable for all the.
But in Manusmriti also, there are certain, say, for example, punishments.
Yes.
How is land, how there, there are some brutal.
I understand.
Also.
I understand.
So you cannot take what was working at a point in time and then say this will happen in the modern thing. So I think the essence I agree with, but
yes.
It's not the, it cannot be a very literal thing.
So that is where exactly we are. Let's see, problem, Prabhu, the problem is we are not following that. At the same time, we are not getting spiritual also. So the leniency has been left to everything. Everybody can enjoy whatever the thing is. As a result, their karma bandhana keeps on increasing and their lives, they will keep on deteriorating. They may go into animal life kingdom also. That's why some provisions in Manu Samhita have been very strict. Okay, that's a thing which we are not following. But at least to the extent of what was the reason that they did not include the God consciousness at all?
There are many religions.
Yeah, I know.
So
we don't.
That what we are saying is everybody should also become Hindu,
No. No. It is
become Islam, right?
No. We are not telling that at all, because when we cannot say particular specific this thing, we have to say God consciousness. See, that is where exactly God consciousness is not Hindu only.
Correct.
So
that's a generic.
That is what I'm telling. So they could have at least made that thing provisional that people should become God conscious. What is happening in India today? Children in other cultures, they can read their scriptures. They are allowed to read their scriptures. They can introduce in the baptized schools and all those. They will introduce Bibles and Qurans and all those, and they will give it to their children. But what happens to the larger section of the Sanatanis? They are left with nothing. Moral science दे दिया. अरे moral science के साथ साथ spiritual science भी देना था. उसमें हमको
ऐसी बात नहीं.
हाँ
विकास होगा.
हाँ होगा.
12 साल से चल ही रहा है।
नहीं ठीक है प्रभु, मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ 12 साल से चल रहा है, नहीं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ मैंने कोई क्लीन शीट नहीं दी है किसी को प्रभु, मैंने किसी को क्लीन शीट नहीं दी है I have not given a clean sheet to anybody, but the principle is that, see, the whole question of that comes in when people is more knows about the subject.
This is there's a difference between constitution and behavior. Right? So I don't think the constitution it says ban nonsense. See, there are a lot of leaders how they are interpreting whatever their vested interest is. So I think the constitution itself, okay, it has certain. It's very generic. It talks about secular in India.
Yeah, secular also was added because in general India was secular. In general, India was secular.
The fact that it should not mean I had modern science in my school. I used to do Vedas in my school. For 15 years, I studied Vedas.
Vedas?
It was not bad. I accepted.
India?
I learned in school.
No.
So something is stopping. So what I'm saying is there is certain political, you talked about leaders who for their own interest are doing. So it's not a problem with the constitution. It's a problem of...
No, constitution gives you to practice your spirituality. But it did not give the way. See what happened. Okay, today we are all studying in private because privatization increased in India. In general, what happens? It is mostly the government schools. You want to go to his government school. Even good students, like, So earlier, of course, this used to happen through Gurukuls. But then, these were all stopped. So the government schools which were there maximum, they were not allowed to do so. So we are not discussing about all that, but the question is we have to understand why. When you said Manu Samhita, of course there are sections in Manu Samhita which today we don't want to adopt, but at the same time we could have adopted this. It's okay, that's fine. So this is exactly why, so this is where exactly. What happens is, otherwise what will happen, the king, if he is not training a citizen in devotional service, as head of the state, he cannot relieve himself of this responsibility. Otherwise, he fails to do this difficult duty assigned to him as a king, okay, and he will be punished by the supreme authority, which we call it as karma bandhana, because whatever praja does, 1/6 I was saying last time, goes to the king also. So it is his duty of the king that he should make a system and administration such a way that people are all devoted to the God consciousness. And that is where exactly, so that there is no other option. So he has to do that administrative duty anyway, otherwise karma bandhana. Similarly, parents, we have to teach our students both about morality as well as spirituality. Only morality sometimes will not help. Okay, I don't say that is necessary. But at the same time, spirituality is also necessary. About Vishnu Puja, about this yajñārthat karmano anyatra. Else we also would face the same kind of reaction which the king is facing, as said in Manu Samhita. We will also face that, and we are also, if we are not inculcating God consciousness within our children, okay, we are also in karma bandha. Children, whether to follow or not, again they have their own this thing, this thing. So you have done your duty. Whether that person, so king has done his duty. If somebody still doesn't follow, then we cannot just go with the hunter. So, but it is our responsibility that we should do this as a leader. Everybody has come with their own karmas and have come with their own background, so it is not necessary that everybody will follow their parents. So this is what yadiyad ācarati śreṣṭhas tattad evetaro janaḥ. Sayat pramāṇaṁ kurute lokas tad anuvartate. The second line is Sayat pramāṇaṁ kurute lokas anuvartate. So whatever standards the leaders have set, others will follow or emulate those standards. So now this is speaking of some standards, now today also company while running has some standards, standard SOPs, standard operating principles. The approval process. That's what I said. So ultimately today it becomes an approval process. Approval. Oh, ये करूँगा तो ये approval मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा. So we are end up in only that approval process. That's why I said that in the beginning. So the standard operating process. So nowadays we define our SOPs, but that's a different issue for running an organization. But those in life also. How many of you write blogs? Anyone from us? Huh? How many of you write blogs on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagrams? Huh? Wikipedia, something. Or blogs or anecdotes or whatever you call. So, means, what I meant to say, blogs or anecdotes or whatever, these are some inspiring words written on the wall of the social media. Because social media. Huh? Acha. Wall of the social media. So, sometimes I share in the group, by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, from this Bhagavad Gita, so and so shloka, inspired from Bhagavad Gita, so and so shloka, right? So, these are some blogs बोलते हैं या क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Anecdotes क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Quotes, blogs, anecdotes on the wall of the social media. That's what I can say. So, and people follow those walls, right? People follow those walls. We don't want to miss what that particular leader has said today. We don't want to miss. Why? Because that inspires us. And we want to follow that. So this writing of these anecdotes or blogs, or this quotes on these walls of social media and all those are all inspired from Bhagavad Gita. Don't think that, they are the creative things which have been spoken or have been, or, suddenly come up today, pramāṇaṁ kurute, lokas anuvartate. Krishna is already saying that. So, Srila Prabhupada, while unveiled the book, Bhagavad Gita first time through Lal Bahadur Shastri in India. Okay. Lal Bahadur Shastri. So that, he was the Prime Minister of India. So that, if a Prime Minister as the head of the country, if he's reading Bhagavad Gita, people in general will also follow that. In fact, Shastriji had also written back to Srila Prabhupada. I'll quote that for you. And that he has written back a, note to Srila Prabhupada. What is that note? He says, His Divine Grace, quote, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is doing valuable work and his books are a significant contribution to the salvation of mankind. Salvation of mankind. India's Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. This is his quote actually. So Shastriji had written back also, and in fact he was supposed to introduce it to the common general public also, but unfortunately Tashkent incident happened and he was killed, right? Or he was declared dead on account of heart attack. So now it happens. So that's why people follow this blog quotations and all this. So you have heard about George Harrison also, right? You're from London, so you know him very, very well. So George Harrison, we have discussed, right? The person who recorded the Hare Krishna tune first time on the media, that is, the LP, long play records, those days. So Beatles was the big company, and Beatles, when Prabhupada had gone to London also, and then he just attended Prabhupada and he got inspired with Prabhupada and he said, can I do a recording of this? And Prabhupada said, yes, why not? And that is how, with their singers, that's why you see today also, if you go to ISKCON temples, morning ācarati, if you go for Indian tune, it will be different. But then, a Westerner singing, Govinda Adi Purusha Tamam Bhajami, it's, so it's a total different tune sung by Westerners. But, Prabhupada liked it so much that he said, all the ISKCON temples will follow this during ācarati. Because it was sung with so much bhava. If we sing, we also sing that, like Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. We speak it, we make it in our, the Sanskritized, those versions and the South Indian tone, North Indian tones, the slightly variations, Ishvara, Parama, Krishna, Satchidananda, Vigraha, so we call it in a different way. So, but that is the thing. So he had quoted about Prabhupada. So he wanted to, in fact, he got so inspired that he wanted to leave his business and he wanted to come up with Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada said, no, you have done a very good work for Krishna. Continue doing this work. He did not ask him to leave everything and become a mendicant with him. No. He said, you have done a very nice work for me by distributing this records. Please continue to do that work. Tomorrow, if you feel like doing something for Krishna from the prophets, do that time. So you all know at the time of death, he had given a will and left his 80-acre villa in London. Not London, that is Britain. Yeah. So to ISKCON, and today there's a good ISKCON temple, and the entire community, Gaushala, everything, it's a big community. So what did he write about Prabhupada? See, quote, I like Prabhupada's humbleness. I always liked his humility and his simplicity. I think Prabhupada's accomplishments are very significant. They are huge, even compared to someone like William Shakespeare. It is his quote and not my quote. The amount of literature Prabhupada produced is truly amazing. It boggles the mind. He sometimes went for days with only a few hours of sleep. Unquote. Quote, close. George Harrison, Beatles singer, legendary Beatles singer. So this way, this is the inspiration, which again inspires everybody. You don't have to leave anything for Krishna. Where you are, what you are doing, continue doing that. Nobody is going to stop you. But always be Krishna conscious. That is what it is. Srila Prabhupada also wrote to Mahatma Gandhi in 1947, the moment we got independence, that as you are a leader, he was declared father of the nation by the Britishers, you all know. So you are a leader, and whatever you say, people will follow. So at least you read Bhagavad Gita. So at least don't concoct Bhagavad Gita message for Krishna's message with your own message. Like Gandhiji used to see everything ahimsa in the book. Whereas we have discussed, where do we find ahimsa? It is all ahimsa, only Krishna is telling, go fight. So fight is not ahimsa. So okay, people look at it. So that's where Prabhupada, left a letter, and that letter, of course, it was not gone up to Gandhi, only their administrative never made them to read that, and of course, or whether, and then he again sent a letter. If you do this way, it will be difficult. You may get killed someday, and that is what in 1948 had happened. Srila Prabhupada went to USA. He found hippies and he converted them to happies. Acharan. Just by kirtan. Just by his books. Those happies, when they came to India, when they came to Vrindavan, they did kirtan, when they helped Prabhupada, it inspired many Indians then also. ये लोग आके हमारे ऊपर इतना अच्छा कीर्तन कर रहे हैं. It inspired them, many of them. Today also, like when I heard Jayapataka Maharaj for the first time, in fact, today is traveling back to India. He is being airlifted from USA, as he was not, but he is recovered. But just to have the, not to further deteriorate, he is being airlifted by ambulance and he is reaching India today. So, those who came from Vrindavan, Vrindavan Vasis started rejoicing. Of course, Vrindavan was already Krishna conscious, but the question is, when they saw this, they became more attracted. This way, we can say that Acharan can be best displayed when one follows God consciousness, or we call it as Krishna consciousness, and adopts God consciousness principles, the Krishna consciousness principles in one's own life, very strictly. Sometimes we listen all this as principles, but sometimes we don't take it strictly in our life. If we take to them strictly, then certainly we can also display examples for others. Because what will happen when I say Krishna consciousness, what will happen? He will have the knowledge of the Shastra. Of course, we are teaching Bhagavad Gita, we could have taught even Bhagavatam also, Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are quite a few books which we generally have. So if that would have been, you will at least know, because that is, see what once Prabhupada asked, why are you making everybody Krishna conscious? He said, I want to make first class Brahmanas. I want to make first class Brahmanas. What Brahmanas? Brahmanas who knows at least the Shastras, the Tattvas, basic Tattvas. Okay. No, everybody will become a good Brahmana. That's a different issue. But the question is, at least when he starts doing Acharan, at least some kind. As I said, again, it cannot be show water, because it has to be real relinquishment. So because these principles are not meant for show water relinquishments. So he will automatically have the knowledge of Shastras, and when he follows that, his followers, if he is doing any preaching activity, his followers who are listening would at least adopt them in their life. that pramāṇaṁ kurute, lokas tad anuvartate. They will do anuvartan. Anumodan हमने discuss किया था, Bhavartan, Anumartan. So people will follow as it is. That's why, this Prabhupada in that quote he has written that the teachers must follow the principles of Shastra, that is scriptures, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of the revealed scriptures. We cannot create rules which are against the scriptures. It can be diluted, but it cannot go averse to scriptures. So the principle should at least remain. The revealed scripture, and that is where he quotes this Manu Samhita. This is the ideal for mankind, and that is where one who desires to improve himself should follow those standards, rules of that, and then practice. These rules have been practiced by great teachers and all those. So that's what Prabhupada has written in that whole. And he also writes, Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms on this to follow the footsteps of great devotees. Bhagavatam, as you all know, it's 12 Mahajans, mostly, which is discussed about. Again and again the reference comes about the 12 Mahajans, and we have read this shloka last in the class at Sunil Prabhu's house, I think so, no? The Yamaraja saying that, don't even go towards them, because apart from me, there are 11 others who knows about this Bhagavad science. I don't know. So those 12 Mahajans who knows about the God consciousness, they have already so they have already quoted, so follow that, so Srimad Bhagavatam allows you to follow in that footsteps also. And this is what is then this way one can progress on the path of spiritual realization, and that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also displayed. Just chant Hare Krishna, do Krishna Seva, eat Krishna Prasadam, and continuously chant Hare Krishna. Do your duty, chant Hare Krishna, and that is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jare dekho tare kaho Krishna Upadesh. Ai agya amara. This is my authorization to you all, that just give Krishna Nam to everybody. Whoever can grab it can grab it. So the king of the king or the executive head of the state, the father, the school teacher, all are considered the natural leaders of the innocent people. And all such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents, to their followers, or whatever you call. Therefore, they must be conversant with the standard books of moral and spiritual codes. Moral, as I said, moral science have been taught us in school. There was a subject, uske upar test nahi hota tha. But simply, weekly one class used to be on moral science. I don't know how many of you remember, right? We had. Now also it is there. So moral science is there. But spiritual sciences, okay, as private schools might introduce, but in general government schools, till now, they have not introduced. Now there is a talk going on, maybe if it is introduced, okay, because those are spiritual science also required. Not necessarily particular Hindu gods and all those others. It has to be God consciousness, how one has to thank the Almighty. It could vary, but at least people will grab the principle from the childhood itself. So in this way, Krishna is saying, Arjuna, in this context, that you are also a social leader. Arjuna, you are also a social leader. Okay? You are the member of the royal family, a very good archerer, the foremost archerer, right? The foremost archerer. So you do need to also set examples for other by working and not by leaving the work. Others are going to follow you. सर्वश्रेष्ठ धनुधर का जब भी नाम आएगा तो अर्जुन को याद किया जाएगा. They will follow you. So don't act in a so don't go in a relinquishment mode. You have to act. So abandon. So if you abandon the war, people, in general will also abandon the warfield. If you abandon the warfield, what will happen? The followers of Arjuna, they will also abandon the warfield. अरे राजा भाग गया तो प्रजा भी भागने में टाइम लगती है. Of course, Arjun राजा नहीं था, but he was a leader. And this will lead to disaster. So Arjuna, at least you are such a good warrior. Please at least do not do this thing. And this is where exactly Prabhupada, gives out a message that, This is for the leaders, leaders of the society. Leaders could be a small boy or even a big person. Even a small boy, so does very nice thing. Like example in Shastras only we take Dhruv Maharaj. We have Prahlad Maharaj. God had to come in the form of Narsingadev to him to save him, right? So it has to be. So that's where Acharya is an ideal teacher who teaches by perfect example, perfect behavior, and who just imitates and who just wants to show bottle. Then that is not real Acharya. You can as well discard him. You can as well discard him. There are, not even in ISKCON, many societies, there are few incidences which has happened which were beyond this thing. But the principle has to remain. You can discard that particular person and then continue. There's no problem with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Then Lord teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also quoted that one should behave properly before he begins teaching. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's impression was that first you become Krishna conscious, then you think of making Krishna conscious others. And that is where Prabhupada quotes also this smoking leader principle. And standard books we had already discussed about this thing. The natural leaders we had already discussed. Srimad Bhagavatam also discussed. Anything else anybody wants to ask? Because that's why I thought I'll take only one, because this shloka is a important question. होता है बहुत.
अभी सनातन में इतनी सारी संप्रदाय क्यों बने?
विष्णु संप्रदाय तो 4 ही है प्रभु. वैष्णव नहीं, वैष्णव संप्रदाय 4 ही है. ओके, बाकी
बहुत सारी ब्रांचेस.
हाँ, नहीं बहुत सारे नहीं. जैसे नहीं प्रभु, एक फिलॉसफीज है. शंकराचार्य का मीन्स अद्वैत फिलॉसफी अलग है. ओके, उनकी परंपरा में अलग है. बट जब वैष्णविज्म का फॉलोअर्स का बात जब आता है तो वैष्णव परंपरा में 4 ही स्कूल्स ऑफ थॉट की बात आती है, जिसमें ब्रह्म मध्व गौड़ीय संप्रदाय, जो ब्रह्म संप्रदाय बोलते हैं हम, जो फिर श्री संप्रदाय जो लक्ष्मी जी से चालू हुआ, रुद्र संप्रदाय जो शिव जी से चालू हुआ, और सनत कुमार संप्रदाय जो सनक सनंदन, ये 4 कुमारों के थ्रू शुरू हुआ. तो ये ओरिजिनल सोर्स है, वहां से चला हुआ ये नॉलेज है. इस नॉलेज में किया हुआ विष्णु, चाहे किसी भी संप्रदाय में आप ज्वाइन कर सकते हो, इन 4 में से कोई भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. आपको शंकर संप्रदाय में ज्वाइन करना है तो फिर शंकर संप्रदाय का अद्वैत है, ये द्वैत है ना, विशिष्ट. सो ये इसका बड़ा अलग सब्जेक्ट है. विल नॉट गो इनटू दैट राइट नाउ.
तो अलग अलग टाइम के बिकॉज़ ऑफ उस टाइम में वो डिमांड इसलिए बने,
इसलिए बने नहीं. इनफैक्ट भागवतम, ये क्या मेरे ख्याल से विष्णु पुराण नहीं, कौन सा पुराण बोलता है? हाँ, नहीं, ये जो मीन्स शंकराचार्य का एडवेंट जो हुआ था, इसके अंदर ये कौन सा एक पुराण है, मैं आपको उस पुराण का नाम बता दूंगा, बिकॉज आई वाज रीडिंग अदर डे. आपको बोला भी था पुराण का नाम यार, कि दैट ब्यूटी मीन्स इट हैज बीन मेंशन्ड, एक श्लोक ही मेंशन्ड है कि शिव जी से रिक्वेस्ट किया जाता है और शिव जी पार्वती को बताते हैं कि मुझे जाना पड़ेगा, एटलीस्ट जो ये संस्कृति, बौद्धिक संस्कृति जो आ चुकी है, उससे हटने के लिए, लोगों को छाटने के लिए, एक मीन्स वैदिक सभ्यता की ओर वापस खींचने के लिए मुझे जाना पड़ेगा. तो जब ये उनको एडवाइस किया जाता है, उसके बाद में फिर रिफाइनमेंट आए बाकी आचार्य. सो वेदास वाज नॉट ओनली, शंकराचार्य संप्रदाय ने, हालांकि शंकराचार्य कभी भी सिर्फ निराकार बोलते, जो निराकार जब मैं कह रहा हूँ क्या मतलब कि जो बिना आकार, मीन्स जो भगवान का जो प्रेजेंट करते हैं, वैसा कॉन्सेप्ट एक प्रेजेंट किया गया, एटलीस्ट कि कम बैक टू एटलीस्ट वन गॉड कॉन्शियसनेस. फिर बाद में द्वैतवाद आया. एंड ऑल्दो ये टाइमिंग है, उसके ऊपर कभी और अलग चर्चा करेंगे, बिकॉज देयर आर डिफरेंट पर्सन्स हु फॉलोज डिफरेंट मॉडल्स. यू वांट टू गेट टू दैट और यू वांट टू कम टू कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस, ये व्यक्तिगत डिसीजन होता है ना. सुन सकते हैं सब कुछ, बट कभी कभी फॉलो क्या करना है हमें डिसाइड करना होता है ना. अर्जुन ने भी सब कुछ सुना भगवत गीता, बाद में बोला फॉलो करूंगा आप जो बोल रहे हो वैसा। मनुस्मृति इज ऑल्सो द लॉ बुक ऑफ मैनकाइंड, राइट फ्रॉम, आया तो उसी समय जब ये क्या बोलते हैं व्यासदेव ने सारे कंपाइल किए थे, उसी समय की हुई है। या मीन्स लाइक मीन्स उसी समय में आई हुई है। मैं कंपाइल किसने किया देखना पड़ेगा मेरे को प्रभु। मनु, हाँ मनु, किंग मनु और नहीं, सॉरी, यहाँ सतयुग जब ये सबसे पहले, यस मनु महाराज द्वारा ही की गई है। कंपाइल हमारे लिए व्यासदेव के टाइम में हुई। यस यस, सनातन वाज एवर एग्जिस्टिंग, ऑल पंथ एंड ऑल द मजहब केम लेटर ऑन।
उससे भी पहले सतयुग से भी।
अब देखो वेद जो 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 भगवान से कनेक्टेड सर, सतयुग क्या, वेद तो एटर्नल ही, भगवान एटर्नल है, भगवान की एनर्जीज एटर्नल है, वेद एटर्नल है, काल एटर्नल है। ट्रिप हो गया, परंतु जैसे इस भौतिक जगत में सब कुछ आता है, सब कुछ लिमिट हो जाता है। भौतिक जगत में आता है तो भौतिक जगत काल के अंतर्गत सीमित हो जाता है। मीन्स लाइक प्रलय, मीन्स क्रिएशन से एनिलेशन के बीच में, जन्म होता है डेथ के बीच में, तो ये इस प्रकार सीमित हो जाता है, अदरवाइज लिमिट नहीं है भगवान के सब। इसलिए बोलते ना भगवान अजन्मे हैं, भगवान पहले भी थे, आज भी है, कल भी रहेंगे, इनके लिए काल अप्लाई नहीं, काल हमेशा से। हरे कृष्ण। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।